What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. We are back after our long-awaited return last week, episode 1 of the regular season of 2025. We are back for episode 2 of 2025. Tough one last week against the Packers. We'll preview the Bears matchup. We'll review the Packers win over the Lions last week in week 1. We'll talk a little bit. Are we in panic mode and those types of things? But before we get started, Scott Bischoff, my man, how are you?
I am perfectly fine. How are you?
I am good. Happy to be back. Happy to be recording. Really exciting stuff, and can't wait to see kind of how this week shakes out for us against the Bears, because the Packers look like a pretty darn good football team with everything that we've seen, through the games against the Commanders and things like that. But let's just dive in. Week 1. What a kind of a debacle this was. Not expected to be the way that it was, but poor execution, miscommunication up front on the offensive line, some odd play designs from John Morton, and kind of putting his players in a disadvantage at times. We're going to talk about all of it, but what were some of your takeaways against the Packers in our loss there? And is it panic mode for us in Detroit?
Panic mode. No. To me it's not, but I certainly can understand why there would be a vibe around how that looked and why that would create some panic mode in and around just how completely overwhelmed they look in just about in every face. Like, the takeaway, I suppose the takeaway was, hey, give the Packers credit for sort of dismantling what the Lions were and seeming to sort of take away everything the Lions wanted to do. But after some hindsight and then watching the Commanders sort of get dismantled by Green Bay last night, it strikes me that maybe panicking about how that game looked in week 1 is a little bit of an overreaction, just because, they really locked up a pretty explosive Lions offense, but they did the same thing last night to Jaden Daniels and company. But I mean, I think there were things that were alarming. The offensive line miscues and struggles were a bit alarming to me. I think we all expected the offensive line to take a little step back.
Yeah,
but this is more than a step back. This was like
a leap. It was a
massive leap. There's a lot there where you think, the Lions are saying. I know that you have thoughts on this, but the Lions are saying that it's just little cleanups and it's things that they can resolve fairly quickly.
Do you trust that?
For me, I understand the concerns around the guards and some of the double teams and the concepts around duo and all those things. I think, to me, Taylor Decker looks very uncomfortable physically.
Yeah.
Now, but to me, there's not much knee bend there. There's not a lot of athletic posture there. He got moved really easy in that matchup.
You had texted me on Sunday during that.
Yeah, look, I mean, honestly, it looked like he maybe needed to poop, and we all kind of know that whole. We all understand what that's like. Like,
yeah.
It's. I'm on the third tee, and I
yeah, go.
Yeah, but like. So that's, I mean, it just, there's an uncomfortable nature with the Decker situation, and there is no real short-term or long-term solution on their roster for a potential Decker problem. There just isn't.
Yeah.
I think that and that's all speculative, so I don't really know. I mean, obviously this week he isn't practicing or hasn't to this point. This is Friday morning we're recording because he's got a shoulder problem. So maybe that's it, right? Like, I don't know, but as to the interior, I think the guards will get their play resolved. I think the Lions do need to make things a little simpler and a little more, because to me they look like a very static. They look very static in their approach. Now, I'm not saying anything about motion or not motion or any of that stuff, because I think motion was something that has helped them in the past.
Yeah.
But there was a specific reason for motion in the past, and I don't know that I have a good answer as far as like why they ran motion type plays in week one. But it didn't feel like the Lions did anything to put themselves in a good situation or a better situation using motion. I'm sure they did a couple of times, right? But
yeah.
And they did not play to the level of they didn't bring any fire in that matchup. It felt like they were overthinking things and not necessarily playing as fast as they could. I guess those are my concerns. I mean, there's a bunch of thoughts, but it's almost not relevant. It's week one. These are smart dudes. What do you think?
No, I'm with you. I think the biggest concern for me was, obviously just the interior part of things. I think long-term, Taylor Decker should be fine. Does he play this week or not? We'll see. Obviously, there's a little bit of concern if he does have some long-term health concerns where he's not able to go for 13, 14, 15 games, something like that. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. The problem for me was just some of the interior stuff. There were a couple instances where Christian Mahogany just got ran over, which we did not see at all last year during some of the limited stuff we saw from him. So that had me a little concerned. And I think a lot of that was just anchoring too soon or not soon enough, too late. And Tate Ratledge, probably a little bit overwhelmed in a sense, right? First game is at Lambeau on the road, and you're being asked to do, different types of things that maybe you weren't asked to do to start the summer. And maybe that was the downside of having him play center so early because, maybe you're messing with his head a little bit. But from a motion standpoint, I know that's been a common thing and all of that stuff. I'm not like overly concerned on that stuff because at the end of the day, you can motion all day long, but if you don't have your center sealing off a linebacker at the second level on a duo run, or you have miscommunication where the center's going left, the left guard or the right guard is going left, and the B gap is wide open, that's problematic. So I think those little details are huge. And the motion stats from last year to this year, right? So 2024 on road games, as we know, they played 9 road games last year, 9 home games, or whatever the case may be. But last year, all motion, 66%. That was 6th highest in the league. Pre-snap motion was 30.8%, 21st in the league during snap motion. So basically, as the ball was coming out of the snap to the quarterback, somebody was running probably a glide motion or in or exit motion. Wow. That's 35.2%, which was the 3rd highest in the league, which is very common. You've got JMO, you motion him out, he can get a head start and get vertical. You've got, pre-shift motion. So you shift the formation prior to the snap, and that's off the quarterback's cadence. They say down and then they shift. That's 2.4%. That was 4th highest in the league, but 2.4% is a very, very small number. So week one, all motion, 23.3%. So 30th in the league, pre-snap motion, 9.3%, 30th in the league. During snap motion, 14%, 21st in the league. And then they did not shift at all prior to the snap. That data was from Scott Barrett on Twitter, a good follow for analytics and in fantasy football at Scott Barrett DFB. But also that data was from Fantasy Points, and they're a great place as well at Fantasy PTS Data, Fantasy Points Data. So, that's the whole thing on the motion stuff. And I think one game does not tell the whole story. You've got a whole season to use motion and those types of things. Just wasn't maybe it just wasn't in the game plan, right? And the same thing with like Isaac Tesla. He was sick. He had that sick catch, no doubt about it. Great debut to have that in your first catch, but he was sick during the week. He didn't get a full week. So I think that's obviously why and Dan Campbell even alluded to that. Like, that's why he didn't play all that much, and he wasn't really part of the game plan because you didn't know what he could do. And you just don't put players in positions because you have them. You put them in good positions when you trust them with what they're going to do, right? Like, so you would, like, if Tesla would have played 25 snaps and missed 24 blocks and only had that one catch, everybody would be up in arms that he can't block, and that's why we lost and everything. So it's just one of those things. Like, you got to practice how you play. And when guys don't get that valuable practice time during the week, it's hard to trust them on a Sunday because it's their job on the line too, right? This isn't just little league football. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think maybe just taking the approach that we're hopeful. I would think I'm going to include you in this, and if I'm wrong, tell me. But we're hopeful that in 6 to 8 weeks, we're gonna look back at week one and think, okay, it's one of the eggs that they laid this year. They've done that in previous years with Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator. They've had games where they've just, against Green Bay on Thanksgiving in 2023 was they laid an egg, right?
Yeah.
There are multiple games in each of the last 2 years where the Lions just came out and just didn't have it.
Yeah.
And, to me, that's kind of the approach I'm taking, is that they just didn't have their best last Sunday. And against that team on the road, obviously it's a much better, the Packers are much better than I think anybody really could have seen. Yeah. So not anybody, because there are people who were talking about the Lions not winning the NFC North this year, maybe the Packers finishing in first. Kudos to you guys for seeing through that, some of this stuff. But I think that the hope is that they do get things figured out and that they get into a rhythm. And we do look at week one as just a bit of an aberration. And going forward, the offensive line is a work in progress. But that's what I'm hopeful for. I don't know. If you look at Philly last year, Philly won the Super Bowl, and through a month last year, they were 2-2, and there were rumblings about some ugliness happening there.
Mm-hmm.
I think people forget that kind of stuff. Like, sometimes teams just kind of stumble coming out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think Dan Campbell really said it best. Like, probably should have played some of these guys a little bit more in the summer. Like, he's not wrong, but it's hard, right? Like, having that Hall of Fame game added to your plate, it's hard to manage what you're going to do, because you've got 40 to 50 players that aren't going to make the roster, and you got to figure out how to get those guys reps and give them an opportunity. And that's what Detroit's become, the place of opportunity for anybody that wants to rejuvenate their career. We've talked about that in the past. You look at what they did with Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick, look at Pat O'Connor, Muhammad, the edge rusher. Like, that guy was on the way out of the league, and they found him late last year and signed him again, and he played all right on Sunday, So I think they've got some things to iron out on both sides of the football defensively as well. And I think they'll get there. I trust that they'll get there. They've given me no reason not to trust this coaching staff and these players. And that's the thing. Like, the players, they've got the players to make the plays. It's not like we're looking at a roster from 2007 or something where there's no quarterback and there's no premier pass rusher and there's no, outside of Calvin back in the day, that's all they had. Now it's, you've got Amon-Ra, you've got Jamo, you've got Branch. Those guys just didn't execute well enough, and they will moving forward. So I think it's going to be okay. I'm not going to hit panic mode. So moving over to the Bears, week 2 on the horizon, Sunday, 1:00 kick. I feel good about this because they're at home, and when they've had their backs against the wall under Dan Campbell, they come out swinging, and they swing hard. So I'm hoping that's the case. The only downside is Ben Johnson's on the other sideline, and I just am worried that he's going to put something together that's masterful offensively.
So therein lies the entire story around this coming game is and possibly. I'm going to run something past you again. could be completely full of it. Is it possible some of the Lions' very critical pieces, specifically on offense, we're looking ahead to week 2 because of the Ben Johnson factor?
It's possible. I mean, anything's possible. They'll never say that, right? Like,
no, for sure, they're not going to say it. But I think that if we just look at like how teams perform when they are really looking ahead at something, that's exactly what it would have looked like.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So a couple of things is I would think that there would be some desire on Detroit's end, based on some of the things that were said when Ben Johnson left, for them to bring their best this week. But, the flip side of that coin is that Ben Johnson understands specifically what the Lions do on defense and where their strengths and weaknesses are, and probably, as we're speaking, is game planning to target some of those specific areas. Yeah. And that's, you said it, and I, it wouldn't surprise me if he drew up something, very, very, detrimental for the Lions defense. The question then becomes, is Caleb Williams capable of executing it?
I was just about to say that. I was going to ask that question because that I think is the biggest question going into this game and during this game, is what can Caleb Williams do correctly and what will he do poorly? Because it's all there for him to be amazing, but the guy throws with very little touch, and when the going gets tough, he just shuts down. And that's what happened on Monday Night Football against the Vikings. Things started to get tough. He couldn't see things and read the defense correctly. He would scramble around and just make nothing happen. He'd have wide open receivers and he couldn't hit them. And it was
interesting because it struck me that whatever they had scripted in the beginning of that game looked really good. Yeah, he looked good, and he got the ball out quickly. He was decisive, all those things. And as that game, there was a clear point where you could see things start to slow down for him. And I know that his preference is to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
And Ben Johnson, I'm certain, wants him to deliver the ball. Get rid of it. There's no reason to hold on to the ball. Everything becomes worse. We'll see. I would think that, that was one of the bummers in and around week 1, is that they seem very passive on defense. They seem to play a lot of contain. Maybe that's the approach this week too, is, hey, let's keep him in the pocket and let him sort of fold up, because of how long things are going to take to develop, and he's going to make some bad reads and throw some picks and that kind of stuff. But, I would hope that the Lions play a much more aggressive version of what it looked like in week 1, right? On defense specifically. But yeah, this is good. This is a fascinating matchup, in and around the interplay of personal dynamics and possible grievance, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested to see what the Lions players bring to the field on Sunday, and just how much is pointed at Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We'll see. maybe I'm making too much of that, but
no, I think you're right. And I think the other thing too is, like, Lions offensively, what are they going to do on first and second down? Because they were 5 for 15 on third down on Sunday against the Bears, which is not a very good percentage by any means. Yeah. And it's also one of those situations where I don't really remember a time over the last 2 seasons where they were faced with 15 third downs, like 7 for 9, 4 for 9, 5 for 10. That's right around where they normally were. They were converting at like 48% last year. So they were one of the best third down teams in football, and they were faced with third downs. Don't get me wrong, but like, they were in a lot of situations where they were getting 5-6 yards a pop on first down, and then converting on 2nd and 4. And that was not the case for the Lions on Sunday, where they were very predictable with what they were doing. It was pass on first down, run on second down, and just absolute chaos on third down. And the chaos part was either poor protection, poor execution from the offensive line, or it was one of those scenarios where just really odd play designs. And that's my biggest question going forward is on John Morton, not on the defense, not even on the players, not on Dan Campbell. It's on John Morton because he's got big shoes to fill. And these route concepts that he's running do not make a lot of sense to me. Like, they are too vertical down the field. They are too deep. And let's just call a spade a spade. You don't have a gunslinger for a quarterback. You have Jared freaking Goff, and you know what makes him good. Dig routes, timing routes, routes that are, based off of play action and building the run. And I get it. You couldn't get anything going on the ground, so you probably changed it up and just started trying to chuck it around. But I saw a lot of guys running in the same areas of the field and stopping their routes at the same depth. And you've got to have concepts that cross with each other and mesh with each other. And that was not the case. And again, I'm not saying I know more football than John Morton. I'm not in the NFL. I haven't been coaching in the NFL since 1998 like he has. He's obviously well more equipped to be doing that than I am. But when I'm watching it and I see 2-man route concepts and that's it, 3-man route concepts and that's it, and you can't get a ground game going, at some point you've got to just come out of empty and try to spread them out and get the ball going quickly down the field and getting in a rhythm, and that will open things up. But they did some really questionable things there, like the first pass play, and this is going to be the only example I give from last week. The first pass play of the game was a swing route by design to Jahmyr Gibbs, and I have this clip on my Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, but St. Brown is to the left, and then you've got, Sam Laporta and JMO to the right, and kind of this twins like bunch look. And then, as an H-back off the line of scrimmage is Brock Wright. Well, JMO and Laporta just run vertical down the field, and St. Brown runs a quick out. Well, backside to St. Brown, that corner blitzes. Goff looks, he sees it, but he quickly turns and just checks it down to Gibbs on the swing route. That's not because he was afraid of the blitz. That was by design, and Brock Wright was left to basically block 3 defenders on his own, and we only got 2 yards out of it. And it's like, I felt like last week it was one of those where it was all offseason. It was discussed that we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, we're going to get the ball in his hands, and he's going to be a receiving back, this, and that. I don't know if that was by design. I feel like it was like forced.
Well, Russ, he did catch 10 passes
for like 18 yards, but,
he scored 13 fantasy points catching the ball.
Yeah.
10 catches. Like,
right.
What the hell?
But it felt like those receptions and the touches were forced. And it was similar to what we saw last year with Jameson Williams. And we had the same criticism when the Lions were winning football games. First week of the season, it was forced touches to JMO. Second week, we saw forced touches to Amon-Ra. And it was like, well, this year we started off with Gibbs. And it's like, now you got to come out on first down and give the ball to Montgomery, and you've got to do and switch certain things up, and you've got to change the way the routes are being ran, and you've got to condense St. Brown a little bit to the line of scrimmage and not have him run verticals. He's got to threaten the defenses underneath, because the guy that's going to threaten vertically is Jameson Williams and possibly Isaac Tesla.
Yeah,
and then you've got Sam Laporta and St. Brown to work underneath. So we'll see what happens moving forward on it. I would say my eyes will be on the offense and what they do and how they personnel things. How much is Tesla going to play? And really just watching those route concepts and how that gets going. Because if they can't get it going this week, then I'm going to be a little bit concerned, because Jared Goff will not be able to sustain any type of rhythm moving forward if they can't get these route concepts figured out.
Yeah, and part of it is also his comfort level.
Yeah.
He looked jittery in week 1, but we've seen that from him, and we've seen, it's kind of a known thing, so I think with him, it's perceived pressure as opposed to actual pressure, because you don't ever want to say, oh, he's terrible with pressure. Well, you're intimating some things by sometimes saying those things.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that he's not a tough guy and that he's unwilling to get hit. He's all that stuff. It's more of I don't trust the center or the guards, and potentially even my left tackle. And while is Penei Sewell playing poorly this week too, I just don't trust what's happening in front of me, and I'm feeling a little panicky, and I got to get rid of the ball, right? So they got to find a way for this game not to be like that. We've seen them do this in the past, that where they have just sucked, like the Houston game where he threw 5 picks. there have been moments where it's been like, yeah, he looks super uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But then very quickly turning that around and all of a sudden it's, they throw up 40 points and it's like, okay, well, they're fine. Let's just, you hope that that's kind of what it looks like. To me, after 1 week it's not, I think it's unreasonable and I'm not saying anybody's wrong because they could be right and down the road, but we can't indict an offense after 1 week, right? Like you just can't. I would expect that we heard John Morton talk in the offseason about understanding the things that they already do well and trying to add just a little bit to that. And I think he needs to heed some of that of his own advice is yeah, you can do things a little different, but in the end, there's very specific things that the Lions offense does really well. Yeah, and that is throw with Goff. It's throwing the ball on in-breaking routes to the middle of the field and hitting some of those players with anticipation and accuracy. And he's great at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And like you mentioned, sometimes you do want to spread things out and just get it out quick and let some of their skill position guys, get rolling into the secondary. But specific to what they look like in week one, I don't know that I don't know that the second level got blocked much in that game.
No.
So, that's going to be a thing going forward too. And we want them to dictate the terms of like how this game is played. In order to do that, they have to block well.
Yeah.
Or reasonably well. And that's, we'll see. This week I know it's only week 2, but this is a huge game, a huge regular season game for the Detroit Lions. And I mean, like, in the last bunch of years, this is a significant game.
It is.
I'm not saying it's on par with any of their, playoff clinching wins or any of the stuff that happens later in the season. But as far as like an early test, this is a huge, huge game. You can't get back. You can't start this season, especially having to play Baltimore in week 3. You can't be 2.5 games back in your own division after 2 games. You just can't.
No,
I see it 2.5 because they already lost the team that's going to be 2-0. That is 2-0. So,
right.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And the last thing I'll say here before we move to kind of our final segment of key player to watch on offense and defense for this week, but I will say Bears and Vikings on Monday night, they did not execute very well on third down either. They were both 3 for 12 on third down, but they were better in the red zone. And they were, 2 for 2, 2 for 3 down there apiece. And the Lions were 1 for 4 in the red zone. So, and they had a turnover down there. So I think, if they execute a little bit better down in the red zone, probably a little bit of a different game because before the half, they had 2 great drives, but they only had 3 points out of it. Yeah. They scored 2 touchdowns. We're looking at a different type of game and a different score. So,
and if you get the pick, so that's the hope is that as ugly as it looked, a few really small things and, a huge play by Brian Branch turns that entire thing around. And it's not as ugly as it seems.
Yep. So maybe that's cleaned up this week against the Bears, and maybe they hope that they can capitalize on it. Any mistakes made by Caleb Williams and those types of things, because as they say in football, the little things are the big things. So key player to watch on offense. I can go first. You can go first. Doesn't matter to me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think for me, the key player to watch is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm taking the easy route here. I was going to pick somebody on the offensive line. I was probably going to go with Graham Glasgow, but I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs because I feel like it's going to be a similar week where he's going to have some forced touches. Let's see what he does with it. Obviously, he needs, 10 other guys to make blocks and those types of things. What does he do, though, with these touches? Does he get rolling? Because if we don't see explosive plays, last week the Lions only had 1 explosive run, and during last week's game, the Packers hit Lions ball carriers behind the line of scrimmage on 16 of their 22 carries, which was 72.7%. That's the highest rate that the Lions have allowed under Dan Campbell. So that's a little concerning. That's from Next Gen Stats. Obviously, again, that's on some of the offensive line and those miscues. But can Jahmyr Gibbs make something out of nothing if those things happen moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, that's good. In the same way, I would think that St. Brown needs to have one of those, big games where he just kind of moments when because there's going to be moments in this game where it's tough and they're maybe backed up on third down or whatever it is. He needs to come through for them. Obviously, you need, like you said, you need to pass protect and all those things. But, from a production standpoint, I'm curious what St. Brown gives them, some of the other passing game weapons. But to me, this is as much as I love Jahmyr Gibbs, I would love for them to come out and feed David Montgomery early in this game and just, very aggressively get after Chicago. But I do think that there's an element of St. Brown needs to put this team on his back and get them going.
Yeah.
Gibbs can do that stuff too. I think it's totally reasonable for that to be the approach as well.
No, I think St. Brown's a very good pick. He had 4 receptions for like 46 yards and he only had 6 targets last week. So, a little bit different. Normally he's, I think around that 8 to 10 target range and he's got 7, 8 catches. So,
and the barometer with him is he's the guy that sort of puts them in rhythm, right? Like some of the digs and some of the over the middle throws. If he's productive, it means that their offense is going.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Defensively, what are we thinking as far as a key player to watch on defense?
I want to say Kerby Joseph really badly because I didn't hear his name much, right?
Yeah.
So one of the tells I think that Caleb Williams was very uncomfortable last Monday as that game wore on was everything he threw was an absolute missile, right? There was nothing, because I think he was late.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything. Like, I see DJ Moore running, and I want to look around. I got to just fire to him, and now it's too late, right? So I think there was an element. Not again. That's me sort of trying to understand exactly what was happening within the structure of their offense, which I think it's just too soon to be doing some of that stuff. But I do think that, if you look at Caleb Williams over his career, at both colleges he was at, and then last year, there is a desire for him to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that he's being nudged by Ben Johnson to get rid of the ball. Like, don't hold on to the ball. That's worse for us. As soon as, there's a very specific reason that they draw up plays. It's to leverage this player to be open, get the ball out to him on time. I think it was interesting that in the beginning of that game, he looked like he was on script. And as it wore on, he looked to want to hold the ball a touch longer than he should have. And then he was late to every throw. And then it became, I got to rip this in there. So I would hope that's for the Lions defense. I would hope that they can put him into a situation where he's doing similar things this week. And I would expect a player like Kerby Joseph to potentially have a pick in this game because Caleb might be late to a situation. And Kerby Joseph is great at baiting quarterbacks into making throws that they want back.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Lions are going to need a huge play like that. We'll see.
No, I like it. I was going to go with the obvious answer of Aiden Hutchinson, but I'm actually going to pivot away from that. And I'm going to go with Tyrion Arnold, just simply because, he had the pick route where he got kind of, it is what it is. You can call it illegal. It's, it's a judgment call.
Yeah.
And if the league didn't call it, then it is what it is. But there were times last week where it felt like he was in good position and Jordan Love just made a better throw, or there were just times that he was late getting to his guys. So I think with Caleb Williams throwing with so much fire behind his passes, obviously the connection with Rome Odunze and some of the guys that they have there, on the perimeter, what can Arnold do there? And can he come up with a big play and start locking down part of the field? Because I feel like DJ Reed at times was put in a tough spot and he got beat a couple times, but I feel like he'll be okay because he's been in the league a while and we've seen his track record.
Yeah.
We've only seen Arnold for that 1 year. There were some doubts early last year. He kind of had a strong finish to the season, didn't have a great first week this year. Where are we at, moving forward? And what's he going to do week 2 against the Bears? Because if he can have a big game, and lock some things down, then I think we're talking a little bit different of the of the defense. And Calvin Shepard even kind of said, like you got to start showing growth as a player and those types of things. So I think he's starting to put some pressure on Arnold, and let's see if he can, capitalize the moment and do something positive there. So that's where I'm at with the defense and the offense. That's where you're at. That's week 2.
I would hope, just real quick on that, I would hope that Calvin Shepard puts the corners in a better position than let's do a lot of contain as pass rushers.
Yeah.
And allow and force our players to play in man. That's tough, man. That's hard. That's a big ask. It's different if you're getting some pass rush home quick. That's a whole different vibe. But if your pass rush isn't getting there and it's designed not to get there, and to me, I saw what I thought was a lot of contain kind of stuff against the Packers. I think that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe we gotta, in some ways, understand that there are going to be times when the Lions defensive backs, based on their scheme, they're going to give up things.
Yeah.
But it's okay. That's kind of like by design, I suppose. I mean, which sounds crazy to say that, oh, we're cool giving up stuff. But that's sort of like how to me, that's what they're asking for. If you're playing a bunch of contain and then asking guys to hold up man on man, I would hope they would get after Caleb Williams. And so, like, I'm not saying I want the Lions to just all out, spend it and let their edge rushers go nuts and give him opportunities to run. And no, I'm like blitz a little bit. Do some things where you are pressuring him, but you're also keeping the structure of things, around the edges intact. So that way he's not on the run and making and in rhythm and making throws. You kind of want him in the pocket a little confused.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yep. Well, I'm with you there because I was live tweeting or whatever during the game. And I was just like, I feel like so many teams are able to execute TE stunts and blitz and get things home. And for whatever reason, if it's not Aiden Hutchinson, it is just so complicated for everybody else to do it. And I don't understand why. So I'm hoping they can clear that as well and kind of figure that out and iron it out. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think they can get some pressure this week, but if they don't, then maybe it's time to hit a little panic button there, but we'll see. That's our recap of week 1. That's our preview of week 2 of Lions versus Bears. You got anything else for us?
No, we're good.
Sweet. I'm good. He's good. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. You can follow us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. And of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your favorite shows. So we'll be back for next week, week 3. We'll preview that. We'll review week 2, whether the win or loss or tie against the Bears. We'll do all of that. So everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Stay safe. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. This has been Bischoff and Brown on the Detroit Lions podcast.